This is the YMB and BTC podcast.
Cryptocurrency decrypted.
Welcome to episode 58. If you're listening to this show on release day, then an interesting event is scheduled to begin tomorrow. From February 6th through the 8th, some of the most influential names in Bitcoin will hold an exclusive conference on a Caribbean island. This meeting was organized by a member of the Bitcoin Association and will be called the Satoshi Roundtable. We'll chat about what these important Bitcoiners might have planned and whether or not it's wise for them to meet in this somewhat secretive manner. Then later in the show, we'll discuss an interesting correlation between Bitcoin and the Super Bowl. Your hosts this week are Tim Baker and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for joining us. This should be episode 58 of the YMB and BTC podcast. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Timothy Baker.
The reason I say it should be episode 58 is because we had a little bit of a surprise for the last two episodes, and we ended up switching them, and I almost left in the audio. I left in myself saying the wrong episode, and that would have just confused everybody. So at the very last second, I noticed it and cut it out and saved the world. Anyway,
thank you again for that, Dan. We all enjoy your sacrifice.
Yeah, you're welcome for not confusing you. Tim, how was your day? Seriously.
My day was pretty good. It was, more than tolerable.
I guess that's a good thing. I like more than tolerable days. Anyway, so we're gonna jump into things, I guess. We got several things lined up. We're gonna chat about this crazy secret Bitcoin meeting that is supposedly planned. Honestly, some people think it's a joke. I mean, it seems pretty crazy, pretty far out there, but, the story's from CoinDesk, and they're fairly reliable, so we'll talk about it. We'll see what we think of it, and we'll try and explain what it even is. And then, towards the end of today's show, we're going to talk about... Actually, I wrote an article about the similarities between Bitcoin and the Super Bowl. Well, I mean, just one, I guess, important similarity. And that was my Bits and Pieces article for Monday. I write one every Monday. And we're just going to chat about it because I like, I write the article on Monday. I love to bounce the ideas off of Tim, see if he agrees or not, and discuss it. And I love sharing that with you guys. So we'll chat about that too. But anyway, before we get into all that, I want to mention just one quick piece of news. There's not a whole lot to it other than it happened and it's awesome. This is some news out of BitPay. They just announced this today. We're recording on February the 3rd, if anybody cares. Late night Tuesday. Oh, I guess we just ticked over onto February 4th. It's midnight, yep. So you guys will be hearing this, I guess, technically, you'll be hearing it tomorrow on Thursday. But anyway, this is some news out of BitPay. They announced a partnership with another payments processor called Adyen, Adyen. And really, the main idea here is with this partnership, everyone who previously used Adyen now has easy access to Bitcoin payments. And the best part is that is 3,500 merchants, over 3,500, that were previously and still are using Adyen. All of them can now fairly easily implement Bitcoin payments. So that's cool enough to have 3,500 potential new merchants. But what's even better are some of the names on this list. I especially like Facebook and Spotify. Those are two really big companies. I imagine you know who they are. But now they have the option, and I don't know. I would be surprised. I mean, a company like Facebook, is there any reason for them not to accept Bitcoin, Tim?
Not really, unless it's just the fear of... you could say that there's still just that fear of it being new and not sure if the government's going to do something different with it.
That's actually a good point.
That's playing devil's advocate and being like really, really paranoid about it.
I don't...
But no, that's pretty. It's paranoid only because they don't have all the information that we have. Someone out there who doesn't really pay that much attention isn't necessarily gonna. I mean, I'm not necessarily speaking for, like, hopefully anyone running Facebook has enough of a head on their shoulders that they keep up with different news. But I don't know. I wouldn't look down on someone necessarily for not taking it just because it was. I'd look down on them because they were worried about the government, but I wouldn't look down on them because I could see where they were coming from as far as being scared about taking it.
I would be okay with them being worried about something new. Yeah, I guess this is the same thing that you're saying.
This is just us just judging other people's emotions.
Well, here's the thing.
I'm okay with you feeling this way. No, I know.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I pretty much agree with you exactly. If they were worried about the government, it's not so much that I would look down on them, but that, I think, is probably the most likely scenario. It sucks, but I think that is really probably the reason they wouldn't so far, is just because of the government. They don't know if it's going to be legal in a year. They don't know if how the government's going to deal with it. And I don't think Facebook would be too worried about it being something new. I think Facebook is smart enough, like you said, to look into it and to know what it is. So, honestly, I really think it would be kind of compliance issues that would probably be the only thing holding them back. But I could be wrong. And now I guess supposedly with this new partnership, they don't have to worry about too much. It'll all be handled for them by the payment processor that they already use. So theoretically, Facebook doesn't even have to care that it's Bitcoin. They can just use the same payment processor, have it automatically converted into dollars, and they never really even have to think about Bitcoin. So I don't know. Maybe it should be pretty likely pretty soon, but we will see.
I'm definitely interested in Spotify taking it at least.
Right.
So if anyone from Spotify is listening, just get on that, because obviously you're spending your time listening to this.
I will say I tried Spotify and it just didn't stand up to Pandora for me, but I know there are pros and cons to both of them, so if that's your thing.
There aren't that many pros and cons. There's Pandora plays a genre style based on what you put in, and Spotify plays the artist that you pick, or also has playlists. So I use both.
Well, no, you can do artists with Pandora, or you can do...
No, but it doesn't stick to the same artist.
Neither does Spotify, do they?
Yeah, it does.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
if you use Spotify, it's normal, if I want to listen to something specifically, if I just want to listen to, electronic or something like that, or I'll just put on Pandora because I have channels. But
Right.
if I want to listen to specifically, a mix of Tool or a mix of Streetlight Manifesto or something like that, I put on Spotify because it sticks to that artist. It doesn't skip around. Which, I like that. Sometimes with Pandora, it's just if I want to listen to something specifically, I don't want to go from Tool to something else like it, but not exactly like it.
Right. No, that makes sense. And, so Spotify, take it, and while we're at it, why not Pandora too?
Yeah, Pandora take it too.
See, the thing is, we've talked about this on the show too before, but I'm a gigantic cheapskate, so even if they did accept Bitcoin, I'll take the ads instead, sorry. But I don't know, actually, if I would feel pretty tempted if they accepted Bitcoin. I don't know. I feel like I could see myself spending Bitcoin on something like that. So
I found that now that I'm working again, I've become a lot cheaper. Like, I've become a lot more like I went into Giant Eagle the other day at Market District on my break on the day that I make like $200.
Yeah, you're cheaper now that you're working.
Yeah, well, that's how it normally is, except for the summer when I just bought like all that stuff. But I was going to go and I was going to get beer, I was going to get almond butter, and I was going to get something else relatively expensive. And I wandered around, convinced myself I didn't need any of it, took 2 cups of free coffee. Like, they have like samples that I took 2 little cups of that, drink that to get some caffeine, and then just left.
Yeah, that's a little surprising. I maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if I was working, I could spend easier, but maybe not. Anyway, another company that is officially opening the door to Bitcoin, this is already a decided thing. It's not like Facebook where it's like now they can, but Jagex is a game developing studio based in the UK, and they are officially accepting Bitcoin now through Adyen and through this partnership. Do you happen to know, Tim, what Jagex is known for?
No, I don't.
Did you ever play RuneScape?
No, I didn't, Daniel.
You should be proud of yourself, Tim.
I know. I should be proud of myself for that, and then I don't have those RuneScape videos on YouTube memorized.
Shut up.
It's impressive. It's impressive to see you and Tyler.
Well, anyway. Yeah, well, this exactly like we've been saying, I wasn't nearly as into RuneScape as, some people are and were. I mean, yeah, obviously people commit their lives to it. No, I just played for fun. Wasn't a huge, is there a word for like a super gamer who just does it way too much? Is there a word for that?
Addicted.
Yeah, okay, addicted. Yeah, I don't think I was addicted very much. But anyway, at the same time, I never, again, the cheapskate thing, I never paid for a membership. I was always proud of the fact that I had a free account for my entire experience.
Well, remember, did we ever pay for Travian?
No, I mean, at least I didn't, but I remember somebody
didn't.
like gave me free gold one time to like use in the game, and I'm like, holy crap, I can actually get paid stuff. Yeah, that's a tough idea. It stinks when people can just pay their way to the top of a game, but that's a whole different subject, I think.
Yeah, that's a completely different subject, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, I say it stinks, but I'm not saying it's necessarily unfair, so... Anyway, yeah, maybe we could do an episode about that. That's pretty relevant to, not pretty relevant, but it could be connected to Bitcoin probably.
Yeah,
we'll think about it. We'll put it on the list.
Okay.
Anyway, anything else with this partnership that you want to talk about, or should we move on?
I think I'm good to move on.
Sweet. Then I guess it's all you then, Tim. I'll let you take it away with this weird secret meeting.
Okay. Now, this is what Daniel mentioned before about the this meeting of Bitcoin higher-ups is very, anyone who has ever looked too much into the Federal Reserve or really is any kind of a conspiracy person at all has probably heard about the meeting in Jekyll Island, sorry.
Yeah.
The meeting on Jekyll Island between... It was the Bilderberg meeting. It was like the higher up executives of the oil companies, the railroad company, I think so they all met there, and it was part of this scheme they were going to deliver this bill to set up the Federal Reserve, which is the national bank, and which had happened twice before, but had been killed twice before. The last time by Andrew Jackson. Okay, that's not really part of the story, but
no, actually, feel free to share any of that, because, I mean, I've heard bits and pieces about Jekyll Island and whatnot, but, I mean, I never actually read up on it, so, I don't know, this is interesting, but keep going.
Most of my information is coming from, well, one, looking into the Federal Reserve, but also what originally was from a video called, I think it's just called The American Dream or something like that. it kind of goes through all of it, and it comes at it from a very kind of older conservative kind of way of like the founding father. Like, it's a cartoonish thing. Like, you go back in time and it's weird, but it's interesting.
All right.
Yeah, anyway, where was I? The oil companies, and they all get together. They're going to put forward this bill to Woodrow Wilson, who had just been elected. And this is while Congress is on recess, I believe. So they wanted to push through this bill really quickly, and the bill was for the Federal Reserve and for the printing, the allowing of the printing of money like that, and setting it up and putting the Federal Reserve in place. And so that was why that all happened. At least that's what is said, and it's actually, it pretty much checks out. I mean, it makes sense. It's not one of the really, really outlandish, like, well, he's talking to aliens and there's a pedophile ring that involves the upper echelons of the Catholic Church, and
right.
There's all this.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I've never really heard it presented as a made up story. I've always heard that it's true. So yeah, you're probably right.
Okay, so that's what has people a little bit spooked about this Satoshi Roundtable thing, which is supposed to be held on the 6th and 8th of February, which is starting, oh, well, I didn't realize it was this close, on Friday. Okay. It's suggestive of a famed Bilderberg conference, the annual meeting at which more than 100 finance experts gather in relative secret to the delight of global conspiracy theorists. That's what I was just talking about. I guess I should probably say that this is an article from CoinDesk. It's kind of out of order. I don't know if you want me to go back and redo that, right. But
well, I mentioned it earlier, so we're good.
Okay, yeah. But and this whole thing with Bitcoin is going to be held on as of right now, an unnamed Caribbean island. So they're having it out away from everything, which is again kind of what they did at Jekyll Island. It's organized by Bruce Fenton of the Bitcoin Association, those wonderful people, and Atlantic Financial. Participants in the first annual Satoshi Roundtable include top executives from companies such as Blockchain, BitGo, BitPesa, Chain, ChangeTip, Coinapol, and Mega Big Power, as well as noted VCs in the space such as Eric Voorhees and Roger Ver. The event is openly exclusive, which I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means, Daniel?
Well, it means only certain people are invited, but they tell people that. Everybody knows that it's exclusive. It's not completely secret, and you don't tell anybody that it's even happening, I think. It's exclusive, meaning only certain people are invited, but it's open, meaning people know about it, which is why we're reading about it, I think.
Okay. Anyway, the event is openly exclusive, and as such, its official website cautions that only 50 members of the ecosystem will attend. According to the website, even if you are a great person with many accomplishments in Bitcoin and lots of passion, we just won't likely be able to invite you. Which kinds of comes across as, well, you're not very important, we are more important, and we are developing this space to our liking, but then again, that's my inner conspiracy theorist coming out too. So.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the main question here is, do you think this is okay? Like, I guess it's hard to know because we don't know what they're doing, but yeah, what do you think of this? Is it bad for them to talk in secret? I guess, let me see if I can, probably 3 sections. There's a moral thing. Do you think it's morally okay? And then there's do you think it's acceptable? Like, even if it's wrong, should they be allowed to do it? And then the last thing, I think there was a third one. What?
I don't know. You like to do this, is it morally okay? Is it ethic, or is it okay to do? And
yeah, no, I know.
No, I'm just laughing at myself.
But I thought there was I think I had a third one for this one. Okay, yeah. And then, is it beneficial? So okay. Is it right? Is it acceptable? And then, is it beneficial to like the community or to the whole world, or however you want to define that?
Yeah.
I think if you understand the way I'm differentiating between those terms. I want to know what you think the answers might be.
Okay, the first one is, do I think it's morally right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine. I have no problem with it morally. It's just a dick move, kind of, to me.
Okay.
Morally, they can go do whatever they want. I mean, like, morally going off and writing a bill, like, even if we're taking the example of what the guys did, if what they did was create the Federal Reserve and everything, was, if that's what they went and did, morally I have no problem with them going off and conniving between themselves. The problem is them whenever they use their collective influence and everything to bring that to bear.
I like that.
No problem with going to the island. That's fine. I just don't get it.
Right.
2, is it acceptable? And then, I don't think so, but I also care a lot more about the more, not stealth, what's the word they always use? We always use in Bitcoin. Well, I guess just the anonymity, the more cryptograph, like make it safer, make it harder to crack, and stuff like what Cody Wilson's doing. I love everything he does, basically.
Yeah. Well, real quick, try and hold that thought. I want to clarify the first one real quick. Because I think I agree quite a bit. You're saying that you don't really care. There's nothing wrong with meeting. There's not really anything wrong with meeting in secret. You can do what you want. What could be wrong is what they choose to do. If they decide to combine their power and oppress people or steal money from people or anything like that, then that would be wrong. So it's okay for them to meet.
Conspiracy charges, like, I guess just using this to jump into, I've never understood conspiracy charges. Conspiracy charges are the kinds of ones that they use to get people with, like, if they have multiple bags of drugs, to say they have a conspiracy to distribute, or a conspiracy to commit something. It's just by people meeting someplace. People say stuff all the time. Like, I guess just explaining, like, what I mean. People say, like, you and I talk all the time. You take anyone's text message, and this is getting worse with how much police are able, like, in some places, police are just able to go through your phone. Like, you have to open it for them or something like that, or else they'll just take it and get through it. And the text message, you can use that for anything. I mean, like, yeah, a sane person is going to understand if you and I are talking about dumping a body someplace, it's probably because you're trying to make a bad joke. And versus you actually trying to dump a body. But that, I mean, with how you've seen how these people, schools get evacuated because a kid eats a Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun. These are the kind of idiots that we're dealing with in this world, Daniel. These are the kind of idiots that are running, they're teaching the new children how to do stuff. But,
I like what you're saying, but I'm not entirely sure how we got from...
I don't know either. I said I was just going to rant.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how we went from...
going back to the
well, I don't
conspiracy.
Yeah, I don't know what made you think of conspiracy charges.
Explaining what I was meaning, like why it isn't wrong morally, and then I just launched into a tirade. That's my fault. It had nothing to do with it.
Oh, so you're saying that you don't think this should be considered wrong, and as a parallel, you don't think most conspiracy charges should be considered wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're right. That made there was no sense to that, no context. But
that's all right.
So I apologize for that.
And then, but anyway, you were also talking about the next one, which is just, is it acceptable? And I asked you to hold that thought.
Yeah.
Is it still there?
Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to say about the moral thing. Oh, is that even if, like, comparing the Jekyll Island to this, it's still not the same thing, because these people can't come out and then force Bitcoin to do something. They still have to, like, obviously they have a lot of influence, but they can't go to some president and make him change all Bitcoin. So again, it's a little, I give, like, morally, like, you get more leeway if it's, like, if you can't force someone to do something, you kind of just persuade people. I'm a lot more like, okay, I mean, I don't really see any problem with that. Like, I might not like it, I might really hate it, but I can't say that it's wrong.
Yeah, and that's what they would have to. In fact, if you think about it, that's sort of what even the original Bilderberg or whatever meeting. I mean, theoretically, they never killed anyone or hurt anyone. They just talked their way into some power, and then talked their way into some money, and then
No,
we
they
get to
bought
where we are today.
No, they build up their businesses and they bought their power, and they use their power with the by threat of force from the government.
Okay. Yeah, I
So
guess if that's true, but
you can't compare that because it doesn't, I'm not talking about if something does happen, I'm talking like even the threat of, now I guess you could argue with me then about the conspiracy charge, because I was about to say even the threat of violence constitutes violence, or not constitutes violence, but constitutes
immorality or something, yeah. Yeah, it depends though, because I think, and I'm sure this is different in a lot of cases, but you could even go farther back and say, well, the people got their power, you say they used the government, and they used the threat of the government and penalties and stuff, but the government probably just got those penalties and the ability to hurt people because people just decided and talked their way into having that power, and people just kind of said, hey, I think I should be in charge because I could really help everybody, and then it just kind of blew up. Maybe.
Yeah, but you're still taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
It's not about that it's not your fault that something bad could happen to these people. It's the fact that with the Bitcoin thing, there's no way they can force it upon people.
Right.
With the other way, they could force it upon people, and it doesn't matter that the powers in place were still there. If you still abuse something, it doesn't like, well,
I think I'm understanding.
You can't use that argument any other place, but people will use it occasionally for stuff like this. You can't use that argument, well, I just did this because I was told to. You say that at work, it's not necessarily going to help you. Like, well, I just did it because of them. Well, yeah, but then I don't care, you should have thought about it a little bit more, but then they want to use this argument, police use this argument all the time, I'm just doing my job.
Right, and this actually flows surprisingly well into the discussion we want to have at the end about force and about when you are making somebody do something or not. But we'll get there. Well, anyway, unless there's more on that, we could still touch on, is it beneficial?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Wait, what was the middle part? Oh, is it acceptable? I didn't finish that.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
Because you kept interrupting me, and I kept interrupting myself, actually. But I don't think it's acceptable, and I like that people are calling them out on it, because it's like, what are you doing? Well, like, what is the point of doing this? Because there's no way that they have to do this to be in secret.
Right.
Like, this is clearly a show of power. If not a show of power, it's like, what are you doing right now? What are you trying to tell people? And I don't really like it.
The only possible good reason that I could think of is just, honestly, just for fun, just to see what people will say, and then just to go to a resort and hang out or whatever.
Yeah, if it's just like to spook people, but...
Right. So that I could see that just kind of being not quite a joke, because I think it's actually going to happen, but it's just for fun, really.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see, but...
Yeah.
Just because it's not the right kind of... It's not... Like, if it was a bunch of anarchists and they did that, I'd be like, oh, ha ha ha. But it's a bunch of VCs and executives.
Right. Well, and also...
I don't trust them.
Just to make your point a little clearer, it seems like the only reason they would have to meet in secret is to do something that most people probably wouldn't want them to do, or to talk about something that most people wouldn't want them to talk about.
Which is fine. Yeah, I have no problem with people talking about stuff that other... Yeah.
The problem is, again, probably the only reason they would do that is if they wanted to use their power and their influence, which they do have quite a bit, to actually do something that a lot of people don't want. And that would be kind of underhanded to just be like, oh, I have all this power. Why don't I just do something that everybody doesn't want me to? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could argue that if you have the influence, then you're free to use the influence. I mean, as long as you don't use force, then you could argue that, I guess we already kind of brought this up, you could argue that persuasion is completely acceptable, but if you have to gather this much influence to do something that other people, that you already know that other people aren't going to want because you're meeting in secret, so you're gathering a ton of influence and you're pretty certainly doing something that other people don't want, that just seems underhanded.
It comes across badly. If it's a joke, it's not doing doing very well.
I disagree. I'll be completely okay if it's a joke. I think it's kind of funny, but...
Well, no, if it is a joke, if it turns out to be a joke, yeah, okay. But it's just like, it doesn't... I don't know, it's not making me nervous, because if it was making me nervous, I would have to be wondering what I'm pretty sure this isn't something good. I just don't, What was the last part? Is it beneficial? No, I don't really think so, because all this does is divide people more, in the sense that, like, we're kind of lifting ourselves above you.
Right.
And it's gonna separate more the people who are like you and me, who are more about the anonymity, more about the sticking to keeping it not like the dollar, versus the people who, whether it's because of money or it's just because of the way they are, they want to, like, it's okay to kind of water down that anonymity part as long as it gets in the bigger dollar from the bigger company and it gets more people using it because it's a cool thing, not because it has the ability to necessarily, like, really dynamically change money, even though it's going to anyway, but the focus is not on the changing of money necessarily. Again, I'm ranting and I'm going to stop, but...
Yeah. Well, I think I understand you. And one thing I want to say is that I'm looking through here. I mean, like, blockchain maybe has some people who are involved with the actual coding of Bitcoin. I don't think Eric Voorhees and Roger Ver do any coding or anything, or developing, I guess is a better word. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, I don't see on this list really any developers. And the reason I bring that up is because, you know, aside from just influence, really one of the only ways you could mess with Bitcoin is if you actually got people to accept a change or a new version of Bitcoin that you knew you could exploit. And really only a really well-known and powerful developer would be able to push a change like that, I think. And yeah, and possibly it could go unnoticed, or even it could be noticed and he could convince people that, oh, Bitcoin needs this change, it'll help this and this and this, and then he'll know that he can exploit it later. That to me, that as far as an actual attack on Bitcoin, that's really one of the only ways I could see things going wrong. And then the good part is I don't see any developers on this list, aside from like third-party companies like ChangeTip. Well, yeah, they do developing, but not necessarily for Bitcoin. So,
yeah. Okay. I'm kind of confused about it, because it's like, I don't understand. I just don't get why they're doing it. I don't.
Yeah,
I say I don't trust them,
yeah.
but it's more like I don't expect them to do something bad, but I just don't get, like, it just comes across as very weird. It's not. It doesn't even seem malevolent. It just seems odd.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about Wall of Coins, a brand new and very handy service for trading Bitcoin. The platform is designed to enable anyone to get their hands on some Bitcoin. Buyers are quickly connected to an authorized, trusted seller within the Wall of Coins network. Just set a dollar amount for your order, safely pay at a bank near you, and you instantly own more Bitcoin. Buyers don't even have to create an account, so anyone can have access to Bitcoin. Got some extra coin lying around? With Wall of Coins, you can sell it for cash, available immediately in your bank account. Visit wallofcoins.com right now to see just how easy it is. So I guess one last thing, like we've been mentioning, one more thing we want to talk about, and that has to do with the Super Bowl, which, I mean, was this Sunday. It's obviously a big event. A lot of you probably know about it. And figured, since it is such a big event, I'd probably write about it. Well, actually, it wasn't quite like that, because I didn't try to write about the Super Bowl. I actually did have this thought during the game. And then I was like, oh, I should write about this thought. And I mean, I wrote this article on Monday, but I'll try and just summarize it. And I want to know what Tim thinks. That's basically it. So what I realized is something pretty interesting, that something that I think I like, is basically, well, it started basically when a ref called a penalty. And I was just thinking, well, that's crazy. I mean, one single penalty can change an entire game, or not calling a penalty, or spotting the ball just a few inches in one direction can change an entire game. I mean, that's interesting enough. But what really fascinated me is when I was thinking how all of the players, whenever the ref calls a penalty, even if it's a absolutely absurd call, they just keep going. They actually accept the ref's decision. And yeah, I mean, a coach can challenge, but after he throws the red flag and the ref reviews the play and makes a decision, whatever the ref says, the coaches, to the best of my knowledge, they always accept it. I can't think of what would happen if a coach was just like, no, that's not what happened, and we're going to put the ball over there instead of over there. That can't really happen. That doesn't happen. I mean, maybe in some super crazed soccer country, maybe somebody tried to do that. But anyway, so that was just pretty interesting for me to realize that even if you absolutely hate a ref, no matter how much you yell at them, no matter how mad you are, their decisions are generally just accepted. And the best part is that it happens without force. Now, a lot of sports leagues are in bed with the government. I'm not trying to say that sports are perfect.
Well, all of them are.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you get into, you have to. It's too big. You're representing a city. They take tax money and give it to them. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that sports are this perfect place or situation. But if you ignore some of that external fringe government intervention, I think about like ticket scalping laws and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty dumb and weird, but whatever. But if you just focus on the sport and you think about the coaches maybe and the contracts in the league, there is a really good level of voluntarism in there, I think, because somebody has to make the rules. The refs and whatever the league, they make the rules. So there are rules. There are standards and guidelines and whatnot. And there are even enforcement people. There has to be a better word for that. But anyway, you know what I mean. The refs, they enforce the rules. And yet, they don't use any force. People listen to them, and their decisions are respected, and they never pull out a gun, they never threatened to lock somebody in a cage. I thought that was awesome, and I also kind of talked about how that is, in a lot of ways, how Bitcoin works. People have to follow the rules of Bitcoin, not because of a threat of being shot or locked in a cage, but just because if they don't follow the rules, then it just won't work in the system. I mean, you're allowed to break the rules, but everyone's just going to reject you. If you try and make a transaction that just creates brand new coins for yourself, you can do that, but the network is just not going to accept that transaction. Nobody's okay with that. And so it won't go through. And so anyway, I think I covered that pretty well. That's what I think. And I know Tim, I actually mentioned this at the end of the article. Tim, in our last episode, he got really upset when I tried to compare Bitcoin to democracy, and he got so mad at me. It was a really, I don't know, I was kind of provoked. But anyway, so I kind of predicted that he would be upset that I would compare Bitcoin to the Super Bowl or football. And I don't know. I'll let you go, Tim. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, it works because they're both voluntary. It's not... I mean, I'm going to disagree that it's like voluntarism. I mean, it is. But it's just something you join into, I guess. I guess I think I figured out why I keep on attacking your way of saying it is because whenever I think of these political things, like even like voluntarism, I think of that very much as more of a political thing, which I shouldn't always. And I think you think of it more as, I guess I do it less with voluntarism versus democracy, but I normally like just keep that as like a political thing. So that's why I don't always understand when you're talking about it. And if I'm feeling in a bad mood, I feel like coming after you about it because I'm petty. And, I like the comparison between Bitcoin and the NFL, not because of it just being like, not because it's like voluntarism, but both because they're both a system that you go into. Bitcoin and the NFL, there's certain rules you have to follow. If you don't like the NFL, you can go play in the Canadian League, you can go play in the European League, but it's not going to be as competitive. You're not going to make as much money. You're not going to get all the airtime. You're not going to get all the merchandise. You're not going to get all that. Which is a perfect example. I mean, it works very well with Bitcoin and the altcoins.
Yeah.
You want more anonymity, use Darkcoin, use stuff like that. You can, but you're not going to have all the stuff that's going to accept it. You're not going to have all the stuff like that. Yep. So that's how I like that as a comparison.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I did actually write about that too. Just how, yeah, exactly what you said. And I guess when you think about it, really a lot of things are like that. I mean, I picked out the Super Bowl just because it was a really hot topic, but there are actually a lot of things that are like that. I mean, when you get a job, you do what your boss says because it's in your favor and it works out better for you. Normally,
yeah, unless you just decide that, like that you just don't want to clean up that person just shit in the dining room.
Yeah.
Or you run away. So sometimes it's not in your best interest and you say to your boss, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave.
Right. But even that's worked out in a voluntary manner. The boss will
exactly.
Either the boss will be like, all right, I'm not going to make you do that. That is pretty messed up. Or he'll be like, no, you got to listen to me. You're fired. And that's all voluntary.
Yeah.
The only caveat, and this applies, I would say it applies quite a bit with jobs. I mean, there's tons of laws about who you can and can't hire and how much you can and can't pay them and what happens if you do something, who can sue who. I think that happens a lot.
Who can sue who? I like that, Daniel. Who can sue who?
So what is that, like a Dr. Seuss character or something?
It sounds like
Cindy Lou Who.
It sounds like it.
Anyway.
The modern day Dr. Seuss character.
So anyway, that happens a lot with jobs, and possibly to a lesser extent, although I just don't know as much about sports, so I could be wrong. But I think with sports, that happens less, although it's the same way. I mean, if a player breaks a contract or something, there probably are legal actions that could be taken. Or even if it doesn't, even when it's not contract issues, there has to be plenty of situations where illegitimate legal action could be taken. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of a caveat, but thanks for listening to episode 58. All of the music in today's show was from John Stewart. Remember to check out this week's show notes at youmeandbtc.com and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show and if you have any ideas for how we can improve. We'll see you next Thursday.